We get a performance that literally no one asked for from the Bubble Bursters. Plus, we take a trip to New Africa. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What is up, guys? We are back for the season finale of Trigger Warning with Killer Mike, episodes 5 and 6. We have so much to get into. These 2 episodes were a lot, to say the least. I am your girl, Drew Jones, and to my left is the lovely...
Oh, TK, I thought you were introducing me.
Oh, no. I was
TK.
I was like alley-ooping it
Oh,
for you.
my bad. I like the hair.
Thank you. I like this.
I know. How are you like...
You
can't
know,
even see that.
by the grace of God, I've just like put it
Because every
in the
time my
back.
hair is like big, it's so... But your face, it looks good.
Thank
my
you,
face
thank
doesn't, it just like pushes the curls into my face. It's annoying.
It's a struggle, but
Yeah.
we're here.
Yeah, we're
here.
here.
In here. What were your thoughts of these 2 episodes? Because I was watching them like, is this real?
So I watched interview. I think he was on Larry King. Interview with Killer Mike on Larry King, and he's talking about how this all started. Apparently, he was trying to get this together for about 10 years. And he's working with this other guy, and then they took it to one network, and it was too pretty. I think it might have been Vice, but don't quote me. And then they brought it to Netflix, and this is the product that we have now. I feel like maybe the budget and the episodes that they gave him, they worked with what they had, because on almost all the topics, except for maybe the last one, you could have actually the last 2 were kind of weird, but almost all the topics before that you could have expanded on it and had different episodes.
Yeah.
So I guess his main purpose was just to make you think. So if you took away some of the fluff and you thought about certain things like, okay, well, even with the last episode, I think it was Dick Gregory, he said that if the roles were reversed, meaning that black people were in power, we would treat white people the way that they treated us. Like, we wouldn't treat them any different. So it's like, to see that the roles and how Mario acted and all this other stuff kind of made you think like, okay, then you get into the wormhole, like, are we truly effed? Like, as humans, are we that flawed where we can't get it together ever?
Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing.
Well, let's get into episode 5 because it kind of talks about, I guess, the power of music and bringing people together. This episode was so all over the place for me that I wasn't really sure what Killer Mike was trying to say. Mm-hmm. But he basically wants to try to figure out if music can bring everyone together, and he goes to an old folks' home to introduce his music. And he sits down with this older woman to discuss their beliefs. And first of all, when she kept saying blacks, I was like, okay, I already know I'm not going to agree with anything she says because she won't stop calling us blacks.
Yeah.
But she claims...
The S is
a
little hard.
She claims we do the most crimes.
Well, I mean, if you watch it on TV, that's what you think.
Yeah, I suppose. But with us, like Killer Mike said, with us only making up 13% of the population, we all should know. I mean, I know you and I both know that is just not correct. We do take up a fair amount of the jails, but that is because
think about it. There's 13% in America. The majority of the 13% is like on the outliers. So you have like, the East Coast going down, you have down the South, and then you have a little bit of the West Coast. It usually stops by like Denver. It's not too much West up there. So, but then we make up a huge percent of the media as far as entertainment. And if we're not in the entertainment, somebody's taking the style from us. So people who don't see us, like if it's more in the Midwest, then all they're seeing is, okay, they sing and dance, they commit crimes, and they're all in jail. So for you to see anything different, where are you supposed to pull from if you don't talk to people that look like us? So I can kind of see how she would feel like that based off of her. Like, people like that, to me, I find interesting because then I want to know how you grew up. Not necessarily if it's wrong or right, but just like, okay, well, where did you live? Like, what was your story? And then it could just be that, I just surround myself with my family and people who look like me, not necessarily on purpose, but that's just the way it is, and everybody else can go and...
I will say my only real critique of Killer Mike is this concept that, like, everybody's opinion should be heard or should be respected, because I just feel like certain things are not, it's not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of this is right and this is wrong. Being racist isn't a matter of, like, I don't like black people just because that opinion in my mind is not like, okay, cool, I'm going to respect that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, you don't have to respect. It's just like people who say if you meet a black guy who says, I only like white women. And that's been an ongoing conversation. However, to me, it's like, okay, well, if you do, fine. And then my curiosity is, okay, well, why? And if he's like, oh, I just do, then it's just like, okay, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily agree with it, especially if you don't have a reason why, but that's just your preference, then it is what it is.
But I think preference is different from, like, saying that the LGBT community shouldn't have, like, rights, like marriage rights, doesn't make any sense. And, like, in the grand scheme of things, isn't going to stop making them gay. So your opinion of them saying that you don't want them to have, like, marriage or whatever.
Right.
Like, I can't, I don't know. I can't respect, I'm the type of person, maybe it's because I'm Aquarius, or I'm just going to be like, yeah, I accept that. I accept your opinion, even, like, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, all opinions are not equal opinions.
Oh, no, they're not equal opinions, but I'm curious because another thing, too, is, like, in that case, then you have people who, again, they don't deal, like, we're very lucky in LA where if you live in certain areas, you can see it all, almost all. The East Coast, I think, is a little bit better, but you could see it. You could see it all. With the LGBTQ community, it's for you. It's easier to understand and accept the concept. Like, okay, yes, they're people. They're going to get married. They deserve equal rights because they're also human. However, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't like they weren't as prominent in media as they are now.
Well, I grew up in the South, like, so it was not the same welcoming climate as LA. So I get that. But I don't know. I just think, like, the concept of the thing that he tries to push here is, like, we all have, like, we're all humans, so let's, like, you know, just accept one another and, like, that be it. Just accept. And it's like, no, I think you need to accept that people are different and be cool with it, but those differences should be things, like, that you can't control, like your sexual orientation, your race, you know, your religious belief. I don't think it's cool to accept. I'm not going to accept you being a racist dick.
Right.
You know?
Well, here's the thing. I think with Killer Mike, he said in a lot of interviews, he said that because Larry King, this is like the most recent interview that I saw, Larry King asked him, what can I do to be of service, you know, for the community? And he's like, well, what you can do is, you know, get people like you who don't necessarily know people like me and others, and, you know, get to know them, get to talk to them, know all this other stuff. And I think maybe with this episode, it's showing that these individuals would never have met in any circumstance. And I think at the very end, the black guy's like, oh yeah, that Jewish lady is really cool. And he probably would have never met her anywhere else. So I think it's one of those things where, you know, you can get a bunch of people together and there's basic things human-wise that's always all there. Like, I don't know anybody, regardless of race, creed, whatever, that doesn't have a drunken aunt or uncle. Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, every family has that.
I am the drunk aunt.
So it's like every family has that, no matter race, creed, whatever. Like, growing up in Toronto, there was a lot of different cultures, and my Italian friends, they had that drunken, like, you know, and like everybody has that. So I think when you see the certain similarities, and obviously there's differences, but you get to appreciate those differences in also knowing the similarities. And I think that's what he wanted to show. But unfortunately, it feels like these type of shows, people who are not open to see this, you know, even other Netflix shows like Dear White People, etc., they're not going to even watch the show. So it's like the people who actually need to see the show won't even watch it. So that's the unfortunate thing at where we are right now.
So after a very interesting performance with him in a quartet, he decides to.
Pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
Add that to the album.
Yeah,
the new album.
It was fun. He decided to put together a super group called the Bubble Bursters, and he brings back Mario, who I was like, why? This is 2 episodes too many of Mario. But alas, Mario is back along with a group of very interesting people. Jesus is clear, apparently. Why is that so uncomfortable to say Jesus is black? Or brown?
I think to probably recently, I can't speak for Latinos, so I'm not going to speak them, but Black people have been making everybody else feel comfortable. So I think it's hard to say in your mind and your belief that you believe that Jesus is Black or brown because you don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable, and then through their uncomfortableness, they're going to treat you a certain way.
Yeah.
So I think like we've just recently come to the point where there's folks who are in a position to say, nah, it's like this and I don't care what you say and you're not going to affect my everyday. But I think that's very recent. Like making white folks in particular feel comfortable is a thing that we have to do very often.
Yeah. Well, trigger warning, white folks. Jesus is from Jerusalem and they're not white over there. So,
however, Cleopatra is not Black. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Oh, I did. I was listening to. I've been digging in Larry King, by the way. If you have Hulu, like he has some really random, interesting interviews, and the one with Amanda Seals was very good. But this is off topic. But I just found that out.
I did know
too.
that. But yes, Jesus is a brown person. Actually, he looks like the people that y'all be trying to keep out of this country. But go off, whatever. So. With the help of T-Pain, this group comes together, which I thought was really funny because I love T-Pain, especially after he just won
the Masked Singer.
Yeah. And so they're all doing these like verses and whatnot, and in comes Keith.
Oh, you actually got his name? I was like the white dude.
I had to write his name down because I was like, I need to know whose man's is this. So Keith goes into the booth. And he decides to
use the N-word.
Use with a hard ER, not even like the A, a hard ER. And he proceeds to say he finds racial slurs to be hilarious. And that honky, he's jealous that he can't use it.
But he can use the word.
You can. You can say it because it's not a racial slur.
Well, I mean, I guess technically it is, but technically it's not.
There's no oppression with the word honky whatsoever.
There might be somebody in the corner crying white people tears.
Okay, well, they cried white people tears when Candace Patton was casted as Iris West in The Flash, and they cried white people tears when Black Panther came out. So, like, I'm not sorry. It's just, so we have this very interesting conversation where the N-word and its use of songs and Black people reclaiming it. What was your opinion on the whole conversation?
So here's my thing. If you feel like you can say the word in Compton and be fine, then have at it. If you feel like, hey, there's certain places that safety-wise, I'm not going to use the word, then you probably shouldn't be using the word. Especially in LA, I've seen a lot of non-Black folks use the word, which is weird. And then the whole music thing is weird to me too. I don't use the word often. But I also, if you use the word around me and you're not Black, then we're going to have a problem. Yeah. I'm definitely going to say something. But on the flip side, it's one of those things where if you feel like, hey, I'm going to use the word, and then a year from now or 6 months from now, it ends up in a bad situation, then don't pretend like you didn't know the word was a problem.
I'll agree with that. If you feel bold enough to say the word, then feel bold enough to when you catch these hands. Yeah. Because, like, it's literally one word. Yeah. There's literally one word that we ask you not to say.
It's almost like kids and they can't touch, like, the pot. You can't touch this red pot. Don't touch the red pot. And then they go straight towards the red pot.
It's just, like, amazing to me that it's, like, it's so hard to grasp the fact that Black people would reclaim a word that was used to demean us, and we would use it as a word to, like, empower us. Yeah. And you can't understand why you, a white person who is a descendant of someone who probably was a slave owner, can't use the, like, I don't.
But the thing is, on the flip side, on the whole music thing, as far as music and the people who ingest and actually buy music, it's not Black people. The people who, in LA, the people who go to the hip-hop concerts are not Black people, as far as majority. I went to the Ashanti and Ja Rule concert, and there is maybe 10 of us there, to the point where the hype guy was like, where are all my Latinos at? And I was just like, oh, so we don't... We don't even like. You ain't gonna say. You're not even gonna mention black folks.
I'll agree with you. I went to an Amine Aid concert not that long ago, and he had all the black. He told all the white people to get to the back of the venue and let the black people up front. And then he rewrote a verse on one of his songs that says, "If you're not black, don't say." So I was like,
yeah,
yes.
I mean, Coachella. Like, you can look at all these things, and then you have. It's become so, because a lot of the music is not as conscious as it was in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So now you have the N-word in the music as more party type music, and the main consumers, especially if you're a mainstream rapper, is somebody who's not black. So now you have these kids growing up listening to this music all the time, and historical wise, they might not know the context of it, because even in the textbooks, they're not calling it slavery anymore. They're calling it some other trade or something like that. Like, it's not even classified as slavery, and we barely talk about what happened. So you're not even getting the bare minimum as far as the historical context of the word. Now you hear the word all the time. Not, again, justifying that they should say it, but I can see why they'll get to the point where it's like, oh, well, everybody says it around me. Because I remember I was at a high school where there's a black kid there. I was running on the track. There's a black kid there around with all his white friends, and he was calling them the N-word. And just like, oh, this is what we doing now. Like, okay. So it's...
Yeah. But on the flip side, just to play devil's advocate on that, there's things that rap songs or music in general talk about that magically white people have no problem not doing. Like, there's no, white people around here gang banging or, selling drugs or whatever at like a high rate. So you guys managed to not do that, but for some reason you can't help but to say
it. To go and gang bang and you live in Malibu versus you saying the N-word is...
That's true.
The easier.
That's fair.
Where am I going to go to get some guns to gang bang and kill off my mom's friend's sons? Like, it's just... It's a lot easier to say, especially amongst other folks who look like you and they're all accepting of the word. Like, the amount of times when I was like on TMZ where we had like college kids, they were girls, the baseball team was saying the N-word, and then this team was saying the N-word, and this person put on blackface, and this is just like, it's like every year you go through the same thing. However, there are people
really
who
changes.
Yeah. Again, and I think my thing is, if you feel like you can go to communities where it's heavily populated and you feel comfortable and safe to say the word, then have at it.
If you're bold enough to say it, say it.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm one of those people, like, if I know that you've said it, I almost want you to say it in front of me, because I will smack the fire up out of you. I'm Jamaican. We don't play. We don't have time for that. But they perform at a Run the Jewels concert, and the audience reaction was my reaction. Like, they just look so disinterested.
Well, Mario was, I didn't know he was. So is he classified as transgender, like, or is he just almost like RuPaul-esque? Like,
I think he's like gender fluid. So I think they, I guess, don't fall into... I actually wasn't paying attention to what their pronouns were. Okay. But I think that they are gender fluid. So that just means there's no line of male and female.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So...
Because I know he did say he was gay in the first time we saw him. So I'm assuming that if he's gay, then he doesn't like mess around with women. So, but he likes to dress up as a woman. So I just thought
it was really interesting. Him being because like in the LGBT community, it is known for, there are a lot of like, racist people in the LGBT community. And I think people forget that just because they're gay doesn't mean that they can't be, racist. And so I think it's really interesting to deal with Mario because he does say a lot of borderline racist things. Not borderline, like it is racist. Yeah. So I think it was really interesting to kind of see that in the interactions that he had with other people. But also, I want to see like who he hangs around with. Yeah. Because he might be like the one like ethnic guy in his group. Like he seems like that type, like, so therefore you either are proud and are individual or you assimilate. Because he's fairly white passing.
Yeah.
So he probably easily could. But that's basically where the episode ends.
I guess they tied it up with the black guy saying, hey, like, I didn't know Jewish people were cool. I think that was maybe the bow around that episode.
Yeah, I just it just felt very scatterbrained. It felt like, you know, in those movies when someone is trying to track down a killer and there's all of the like
So
newspaper clippings and like the red lines and you're like, this doesn't make sense, but I see that there's trying to be a theme here.
Yeah.
That's what this episode was for me.
Yeah, I was, you know, trying to make it work in my head, but it was, and it almost felt like two separate episodes with him going to the old people's home and then putting the group together.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like what he may have been trying to do could have probably been several episodes as far as segregation versus, because he's talking about two things, like when there's segregation with black folks, we were doing well as far as money wise and all this other stuff, but then actually, am I saying all right? Yeah, I think it's saying all right. But then now we segregated, now we integrated, and now it's one of those things that it's slightly integration, but because there's only pockets, like there's ghettos and there's certain places where there's a lot of black people, a lot of minorities, and then everybody else lives in a certain place. So we're almost segregated, but now we don't have the wealth. So I think it's one of those things, like either we all get together and we do what we need to do in order to, as a community, to go above it, or we all start mixing and matching, meaning like, you know, everybody doesn't need to be in New York. Like if you're not in these particular professions, then hey, you can live in the Midwest for this amount, and you can get this house for this amount and have this type of life, but you'll be integrating with folks that necessarily don't look like you, with more folks that look like you. You know what I'm saying? So it could be one of those things. So it's like a one or the other, which that's a whole nother conversation, which, you know, I know people on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, AfterBuzzers, we obviously want to know your all's opinion on the matter because, you know, this entire season there's been a lot to discuss. But we want to thank you for rocking with us so far this season, for watching the videos, for commenting. If you want more videos like this, or if you want to check us out on all of our other shows that we have, because we do cover a plethora of shows, make sure to like and subscribe. We don't just have this channel, we also have the drama channel, we have reality TV, we have sci-fi and superheroes, you name it, we probably have a show for it. But for now, you guys, thank you so much for rocking with us and for making us the ESPN of TV talk.
Oh, look at you, okay.
You know. Let's hop into episode 6, which is the season finale. This is basically about building a country, starting up your own country. The episode starts out with a little bit of background on a guy named Fela Kuti, who is a musician and activist and created his own country, but that did not last well because it got shut down and his mama got thrown out the window. Yeah. So Killer Mike decides he's going to make his own country. He's going to make New Africa. So he goes to Chief Asaru, who is the Nubian nation of Moors. He's the chief of that, and he learns how to make a self-sustainable nation.
This was interesting.
It was, because I wasn't sure what he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because what this, and we see Mario again in this episode, what this felt like, again, where it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to make this new country, because at one point, America was a new country. And I believe it was the Protestants came over first to flee persecution as far as religion based. And then, of course, more people came over. But the first group of individuals that came over were flawed individuals as well. So I think the intention of America was good, minus, you know, slavery and all that stuff. Like their intent.
Bringing over unwarranted diseases and killing off tribes.
Yeah, I think the intent was good, but then there was others that like, no, there are natives here. We need to kill them because they don't need to be here. And, you know, our folks don't need to be doing the land. We need to bring other folks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that when they first came over, there had to be some pure intention. And then there's other folks that are like, oh, yeah, we can do this, but we can do this way. So I feel no matter what, because we're flawed as humans, that like the utopian ideal, which I've always subscribed to when I was like a teenager, is great, but
Not realistic. 'Cause
No.
not everyone is.
everybody has some type of flaw.
Yeah.
So even with the purest intentions, you might come and, you might say, well, everybody's household needs to do this, X, Y, and Z. And somebody's gonna be like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, and then, you have kids and, kids have their own, it's just so many layers to it.
Yeah. There is. I don't even know where to go with this episode. Mario writes the national anthem.
Oh, gosh.
It's trash.
Yes.
And insults Killer Mike and I guess the rest of the country of New Africa. Come to find out, Mario didn't pledge, and so now it's just everyone fighting and going back and forth.
Right.
And out of this argument, it is decided that
They're going to have an election.
they're going to have an election. And technically, Killer Mike wins by a landslide. But he rigs it so that Sita will win because he thinks she is what the future needs. That's not true democracy, though. I mean,
Is there a true democracy?
facts. I was going to say, due to the current state of our...
Current state, before that, George Bush, and there's even, if you go further back, there's...
Florida.
Yeah, there's so many... I honestly think that if you were doing an election of any sort, and there was a window of a chance where either you or the people who are working for you that want you to win that badly, and there is a window where they can make it where you win and not get caught, it's probably going to get done.
Yeah.
So
The episode just made me feel a little overwhelmed because it was just kind of like, it just made me feel like there's not a lot of hope for our country.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like, maybe we do just need to die off and just let the animals do their thing, you know?
Well, this thing, how do you know we're not the third or fourth die-off?
Facts.
Like, I thought about that like a week ago or something. I was like, how do you, we as humans think that we're so advanced and so better than everybody else, all this other stuff. There's people who believe in afterlife. There's people who believe in aliens and people and you truly don't know. So how do you not know that, because the scientists said the Earth had started here, how do you not know that the Earth had exploded and started again, and now we're here? But this is the 7th or 8th version that God is like, I'm going to try this again. Oh, you guys effed up again. Let's run this back. Like, we don't know.
Like on The Good Place, they kept wiping their memories. Dang.
So we don't really know, which is unfortunate. You can go into the black hole, that stuff, but I also believe that there are people. I refuse to believe that humanity is that bad. I believe that we all start off with certain intentions, and based off of our experiences, it might guide us to one way or the other. But as far as general population, I think there's way more good than bad.
Yeah.
But then you have laws and all this other stuff that, takes people through a whole nother pathway.
Facts. Out of the season as a whole, what was like an episode that stuck out to you, or what was one that you really enjoyed?
I liked the first couple episodes. I think it was the first episode where it's Buying Black, which made me very more aware and intentful, that's a word, of, buying from Black organizations. So for instance, like I just got a food delivery service, and I had a choice of one, which is very good, and the other one, which was a startup, is Black owned. And it's like, okay, well, let me just take this hit. There might be some bumps, but let me,
Yeah.
So, that's made me very conscious of that. It was just a lot of different thoughts, and it could also be overwhelming, because then you come into this place of, if you are a couple or a mother or a father, you're working 9 to 5, you have 2.5 kids, and you're just trying to make sure that they are growing in a certain direction with social media and all these elements, then to overlap government and to overlap all these issues, it's a lot. And I don't even have any of that. So it's just kind of like, I honestly wish that maybe he took one topic, maybe like buying black and how banks are a good thing and all this other stuff, and expanded it more. So then now you can ingest it and then do something about it.
Yeah.
So maybe because I felt close to that episode, that's what I'm doing. And maybe other episodes for other people, maybe they're doing that. But it was a very overwhelming, like, you know, are we just truly, like, is there ever going to be a point in time as far as minorities are concerned where they're not starting from a certain point?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The buying black was something that I definitely reflected on and made me want to step up more. I've been participating in Black Fridays.
Okay, all right.
You know. But yeah, that was really what stuck out to me, and I agree with you. I wish it would have been There's so many episodes where I was like, this could have been the whole season. We could have focused on this. But
because even the journey of the crip-a-cola, I would love to see. Like he said, I forgot when that interview aired, but he said that it was coming out, and apparently New Africa didn't work out. So like all those stuff, I would have loved to see. Like the journey of that, like, okay, he took Atlanta, like now try to do that in LA. Like, could you do that in LA, or could you do that in New York, or like certain parts of New York? Because I know they travel, they tour. So I would love to almost see that in different places and then highlight different black businesses. Like that would have been good, because now, like if you watch like those restaurant shows or whatever, then you're like, oh, I want to go to that place. So that would have been highlighting, you know, their black businesses. So, you know.
I would love to see a show turned into where like a black business is featured every episode, and like what's the one with Guy Fieri where it's like drive-ins, diners, something,
and you go and see that restaurant. Like I remember I saw a Jamaican restaurant off of one show, and I went there. It was in Pasadena. It's since closed down, but I went there because I saw it on the show. So it's just like that would have been really cool, because remember, you know, I tried to put together a event trying to find a black restaurant in the Valley, and it was next to near impossible. And I went to that black restaurant, My Two Cents, in LA. Really great restaurant. A little slow on the service, but I can't remember if it was Killer Mike or somebody had said it. Might have been D.L. Hughley. Don't like discredit the business off the bat because of one thing, but you'll go to wherever a billion times. So I'm gonna give them a second chance and just, you know, I like my food a little faster.
I feel that.
So it is what it is.
Well, that is the season in a nutshell. Would you want a second season of this show?
Not like this.
Yeah, I agree.
But he did so much press for it. I don't see it not getting a second season. There have been far less popular shows that have gotten second season, so I don't see this not getting a second season unless he doesn't want to do a second season. So.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely hope that it's reformatted if they do come back with a second season. A little less preachy, because I feel like the audience who's watching it isn't necessarily the audience who needs to hear it.
Yeah.
So a little less preachy at us and a little more like informational, you know?
Informational and funny. It's almost like The Daily Show, but Killer Mike style.
I agree. Well, this has been a treat. It has been a pleasure. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on everything at TK Trindad.
And you guys can find me on all the things at OK Drew J. We'll see you guys later.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.